Let's go back to talking about the shutdown. And Sean, just we assume it's going to pass the House. I assume all of us do.
Yeah.
What happens then? Like once the House passes it, where does the conversation go? Does it go to healthcare discussions? Does it go to whatever Donald Trump puts on True Social? Like where's the Washington politics talk after House passage?
Yeah, well, first of all, I will say I'm going to keep my eye on C-SPAN on that vote because remember, a lot of members are going to have interesting time getting back. You got a new member from Arizona being sworn in, meaning it's a continues to be a very narrow majority for the House. So it's not just um, the how many people he's got commitments from, and Johnson's done a great job of getting the Freedom Caucus guys in particular on board. But I'd be interested to see. You wouldn't believe the stuff that happens when you're hoping that everybody makes it back on time, not just travel wise, but like health wise, family wise, et cetera. So that's number one. Number two is I think that this is going to be interesting because there's reports that the Senate's really looking at some healthcare policy, and that's going to immediately send the House guys into freak out mode. What do we need to be doing? What is our answer? I do think that you're going to hear a little pop off about Epstein for a couple days because the discharge petition will get signed. So we'll spend 24, 48 hours pretending like that's going to matter. And I say that respectfully to people because it's not that the issue doesn't, but I'm talking about the legislative process. We've talked about this before. The Senate's not going to take it up. The president's never going to sign it. So the bottom line is this is a media exercise more than anything else in terms of the discharge petition. I think Anna Paulina Luna got some assurances that the Stock Act is going to go through regular order in the committee. So there's a possibility. Again, I think you're going to get a little bit of a potpourri of issues as everybody tries to game like how much attention can something get, but I do think you're going to get a little bit of healthcare discussion about what's next and what are we going to do on the ACA subsidies specifically.
Dan, where do you think
Yeah,
the
I
pop
think you're going to
go?
hear people talk about, Trump last night said, I'd like Trump care. And I think you're going to hear Democrats now lean into that, saying, okay, where's Trump care? Show us Trump care, right? Kennedy's kind of floated this idea now of sending money directly to individuals, but of course, there's absolutely no details about how that would really work in theory and cost savings. And, presumably then you turn around and they're going to route that money back to the insurance company. So you're spending money on moving it around. But I think now you're going to see the party try to move forward to make this about healthcare. Again, we're fairly united. Our position is extend the ACA subsidies. If you want to criticize them, fine. Show us Trump care.
Well, also to your point about these subsidies, I know the president, at least according to the Treasury Secretary's lack of awareness about the issue, no disrespect to Secretary Bessent, but it's clear that this was not a full-on baked policy idea. And I think more people are going to get concerned. You've got tariffs that you saw the Truth Social last night. I've said this for all along. I just believe where the court's going to go on this, there's a good chance that I think you're going to lose that tariff money. So that's number one. Number two, even if you got to keep a chunk of it, I think we've got a $38 trillion in debt. And I get the president's desire to want to send everyone a check, but I just showed you guys a check last 2 weeks ago from Virginia. I think everyone has this false sense that you get a check from some politician and you're going to flip your vote for him.
Yeah, I know. If I understood you the other day, you're skeptical of this, but the Wall Street Journal's very good Supreme Court reporter also floated this notion with citing some precedent. So this is less about trade law than Supreme Court precedent, that the court could say president violated his authority and we're laying down the marker going forward, but you can keep the money because we're not going to tell the executive branch, we're not going to micromanage that. Uh,
Look,
so
obviously, I'm not I mean, like, I took one legal class ever and watch a lot of Law and Order. But from my understanding from precedent, that the basis of the case is, hey, you didn't have a right to take this. So if the plaintiff is seeking relief and
yeah,
saying you didn't have the right, and the court says you're right, you are absolutely right, but we're not giving it back, it kind of defeats the point of the case.
I agree with you in sort of like logic, but the journal story cited at least one or two cases
Yeah,
where
and
they
no, no,
said
look,
they
I'm
could
sure,
do it.
I'm sure they can.
I also think the other interesting thing to watch here is this whole thing about affordability, because Trump seems to be ping-ponging around, right?
Yeah.
Immediately after last week, you heard James Blair and others say, we're going to focus on this. It's an important issue. And then you get Trump for the second time this week, last night, and Laura Ingraham saying it's fake news.
Yeah.
There
But see,
is no
look,
affordability
this goes
problem.
back to what I was saying before. I think where the disconnect, in my opinion, is. I gave the example the other day. If the prices were $3 when he left office, they went to 5 during Biden, and they're now 4. In Trump's mind, correctly, he's like, look, things are going down. The problem is for most Americans, they go, yeah, but they're still $1 more than they were. They don't really care whose watch it all happened on as much as I'm still paying more money for X, right? So yes, he's right that a lot of things are getting cheaper, but for most Americans, they just care about the bottom line for their wallet, which is, am I paying more or less, regardless of which politician was there at, during a certain period of time.
Yeah, and I will tell you the one thing I'll say about this is attention. I was in DC yesterday, talked to some folks. Attention's going to turn to the State of the Union and
Yeah.
all the things that go into that on the inside. This administration historically has not leaked the way others have, not leaked, but spoon-fed out little teases about it. I don't know why, but they haven't. So, but you'll see a lot of people in the administration being said, bring us your affordability ideas. But I think we'll see those in the State of the Union, which could be January, could be February. But don't forget Halpern's rule of 7 and 5. Nothing happens in November and December. 2 of 5 months during the year where nothing happens. So they'll have to deal with the December vote, the January deadline. But
Well,
I think you're going to see that. You're going to see the president's wacky musings about affordability maybe tamp down a little bit as they look for actual ideas. Dan.
and don't forget, primary season starts in February. And at least on our side of the out, like that is going to start to consume the caucus
Yep,
because
good
if you
point.
get some big people knocked off early, that is going to start sending a message of, are you next? Who else could go? What is the caucus going to look like? Is leadership safe? So we're not that far from votes being cast.
So let me just throw this out there to flip Mark's question. If the president said, what date do I want to give my State of the Union, knowing that the current deal funds the government through January 30th, do I want to give that speech before the funding fight starts again or after?
I would do before
I would do before.
to
Yeah.
dominate the year and to try to frame
Well,
that.
not just that, but you can't, if you, let's say you picked February 7th and you go into another shutdown, you're going to give your State of the Union while the government shut down? I mean,
Yeah,
that's just not a good
yeah,
look.
yeah. And even if you set it for February 20th, you still run the risk. All right, we'll see what they do.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and Two Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.